Okay, I'm live. I'm just waiting for people to turn up. Ooh, nobody's here yet. That's odd. Oh, there we go. I got something. I was just saying, no one's here yet. That's odd. Usually there's someone when I first turn up. Anyway, welcome. Brenda Broadfoot. Where are you from? I'm here in Vancouver, Canada. I'm always interested to hear where people are from. So I'm just asking where you're from. Okay. Just waiting for people to turn up. It's always that quiet time while you're waiting. Mississauga, Ontario. That would be a hard thing to say if you didn't know how to say it, wouldn't it? One of those. Mississauga. I've never been there. Bristol, Connecticut. Bristol, Connecticut. How are you? I'm wonderful. Absolutely not complaining about a thing. I got up this morning, and I live in downtown, and I got up this morning and it was cold and wet, and there was a homeless person just sitting on the bench outside my building. God, I wish they could figure that out. I really wish that they could figure out how to keep these people off the streets, somewhere warm and safe. It's just, I don't know, the older I'm getting, the harder I'm finding that. I don't know what it is. But anyway, yeah, it's just heartbreaking. Hartford. Is that Connecticut near Hartford? Yeah. Bristol, Connecticut. Okay, near Hartford. I wish I could say I knew where that was. It's Connecticut. So I'm Canadian, so I don't even know Canada. Okay, but I probably know more about the States than I do about Canada, to be honest. Questions about toddlers who won't eat dinner, just plain refuses. Okay, so we'll get into that. I don't really like to talk a lot about kids and nutrition and eating because I don't like to talk a lot about it because I'm not a nutritionist or a doctor. But what I find that parents make the mistake with, the capital of Connecticut. Oh, okay. Hartford. Oh, okay. Now I know. Anyway, what I find is toddlers don't eat nearly as much as you think they do. Hello, Queensland. That's where my kids were raised. It's Queensland, Brisbane. Anyway, so I was there for 20 years. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, toddlers don't eat nearly as much as parents think they should. So they often fill them up on snacks. So in between meals, you're filling them up on snacks, and they often taste better than the meal. So they're just choosing to eat between meals rather than meals. Think about that. That could be it. I don't know, but that's very common. I got this weird hair sticking out here. I've got curly hair. If you've got curly hair, you know. Okay, so I've just got some questions here that I've collected that I think I just haven't had a chance to answer anywhere else. So I'm using these lives now to answer them. How do you become a leader with a toddler? You don't really become a leader with the toddler in that they're not sort of geared to follow yet. By the age of 3, they are desperately searching a leader. And they sort of want when they're a toddler, but a lot of the time they just are crazy anyway. So the best thing you can do with a toddler is enter their world when you're playing with them as much as possible, because they do start to look at you differently. The more you enter their world, the more you're sort of on their level. So observe how they play and then join in. It's sort of the start of it. And when you want to correct a bad behavior, it's about consistent corrective actions, because it's very similar with entering their world. They're not about words, they are about actions. So if you want to discipline a toddler, use consistent corrective actions, because they learn through repetition. Okay? Can you put not listening on the behavior board? Absolutely not. That's in the behavior, that's in the attitude department. You never put attitude, you only put actions. That's like saying, be a good kid. It's ridiculous. So it's too broad, it's too much of an ask. Plus, not listening, who's to say that you're asking correctly? Like, what I mean is a lot of parents expect kids just to do whatever they say, but sometimes you're being unfair and unreasonable, and that's why the kids aren't listening. So that's a big part of it too, is teaching parents how to be accountable and how to be fair and reasonable. I do that a lot in coaching because I get to know them. So often I'll say, well, they're not listening because you're being unfair and unreasonable. And the parents are like, oh, what? And I say, yeah, I wouldn't listen either. So you've got to be fair and reasonable, and then they are more likely to listen. But yeah, you can't put attitude on the behavior board. It just would never work. Kids are 7, 5, and 1. Yeah, and only the age of 3 is when the behavior board starts. Oh, I had a chaotic day today. It's a good day. It was productive but chaotic. So I'm just kind of recovering here. Okay. Uh, this was an interesting comment that someone said, and I wanted to point this out. Someone said, I need to learn how to be a leader. It sounds so much less stressful. Absolutely. Learning how to get respect is hard work. Setting yourself up as a leader is hard work. Maintaining it is a piece of cake. There's like no stress. I train my kids to like with this leadership stuff. By the time they were about 3.5, and then they were self-disciplining right through the teen years because we had that mutual respect. Leaders give respect to get it. So yeah, oh, so much less stress. But it's hard work to get there. Getting respect is hard work. Maintaining it's a piece of cake. So yeah, that's what that boot camp course is all about. That's the hard work. Usually by week 4 and 5, you'll start to see things shifting and getting easier. Yeah. But nothing worthwhile comes easily, does except maybe winning lotto. I wouldn't want to do that anyway because I'd rather work for my money. Did that sound convincing? Okay. So, oh, I don't have anyone on YouTube right now. Really slow tonight. That's weird. Tuesday nights are definitely busier. Okay. I'm just going to read some of it because I'm not getting questions on Facebook here. So I'm just going to start reading some of the questions. I get hundreds of questions through. I have tons of platforms going on. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, I can't possibly keep up with all the questions, so I'm adding them in the lives. How to avoid school morning chaos. I do have in the works. I actually have it. I don't want to say when it's coming out, but I've got it coming out not that far from now. My school morning routine course. And it's all about structure and routine. Also using incentive. It's not a bribe. A bribe is when they're doing something bad and you bribe them to get them to stop. That's different. You're actually rewarding that bad behavior. So all you've taught them is if I keep doing this, I'm going to get that. So, but incentive is, I'll tell you what, as soon as you're ready for school, you can have the iPad for 10 minutes. Something like that. Have incentive. And that's not a bad thing to do. It's like we all work for incentive. We work for a paycheck. There's nothing wrong with working to get what you want. My kids learn from a really little age. You got to do what you need to do before you can do what you want to do. So that's sort of how it operated. And they just understood that. They understood accountability and you have to work for what you want from a really little age. Did they always do it? No, but they got it. They were pretty darn good. Does that make sense? Incentive. Nothing wrong with that. You don't do it with absolutely everything. But school morning routine, yeah, it's a really good one. My kids would race around the house, making their bed, putting their dirty laundry in the hamper, having breakfast, packing up their school bag, and then they'd sit down and watch TV. Because they knew there was no TV until they'd done all that. But they never asked. It was just sort of became a habit. Okay, this was a question from someone. I don't know who. I'm just answering a lot of these questions that I get on here because I don't get a chance to do it on the platforms usually. I wait for him to come and then I hug him. This is about tantrums. So I wait for him to calm and then I hug him. Specifically, if it is a big tantrum. Okay. Now, you never console a tantrum before, during, or after because you don't even want to acknowledge it. Acknowledging it is making it obvious that it exists. I just sort of pretend it doesn't even exist. You're not ignoring your child or their big feelings or their big emotions. You're ignoring, so I don't know why I'm tongue-tied tonight. You're ignoring their lack of emotional control at not getting what they want, when they want, and how they want it. There's nothing wrong with ignoring that. Okay, so yeah, you never hug them. And if you hug them after a tantrum, it makes it look like you felt sorry for them. Makes it look like ignoring them made you feel guilty somehow. There's no way. As soon as the tantrum's over, I go, oh, you all done? You want to go to the park? Or do you want to read a book? It's like it never even happened. There is no point in discussing a tantrum. None. You can come up with a good point in why you should discuss a tantrum. You won't be able to with me, but you can give it a shot. Why? Validating their feelings, validating their big emotions, making them feel like they're heard. It's garbage. They don't need that tantrum to be validated at all. Okay. Okay, any questions? I'm here for another 20 minutes. I'm just not getting many questions on here for some. It's a really slow one tonight for some reason, which is relaxing for me. But okay, I'm just looking at some of the questions I get elsewhere. I get tons of questions everywhere, and I just don't have a hard. I just can't answer them all. I was. It's interesting. I always say kids aren't listening to you, but they're watching you. And there was some big new study done, big science study done, and they said that the kids form in the first 7 years. That's not news. But and it's just validating what I've always said. What this man said was he said they found that they're not listening at all. They're watching. They are not listening. That's not how they form. They may be listening and understanding and all that and learning, but they form by watching and observing. Interesting. First 7 years forms their character, and they learn that by observing you. Yeah, I always kind of said that, but that was this big study. Just came out a couple months ago. Okay. Any questions? No questions on here? It's the first time. Okay, here we go. Karina. What are some ways to start becoming a leader with teenagers? That one you have to make amends first. So if you've been yelling at them or doing everything wrong or whatever, you don't feel like you've been a very good parent. I would even do this anyway. I would say, look, we got this new behavior board, or call it an accountability chart with teenagers. It's free in the link above. And you say, look, I've got this because we want to be better parents for you. Okay. So what we want, and you make their rules something really inane, something that you've never argued over. It's not a big deal. Something like put your dirty clothes in the hamper and nowhere else. Okay. And then you say to them, what do you want from me? And then have fun with the consequences. They might say to you, get off my back, and say, well, it's too big of an ask. How about no yelling or something like that? So you go back and forth. And I'm going to read my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. So yeah, the behavior board is more about bonding with teenagers. It's actually that way with little kids too, but especially with teenagers. You don't start correcting what you don't like. That actually happens organically. When you get respect with a teenager, you never have to tell them what they're doing wrong or what not to do wrong, whatever. You don't. It just sort of happens organically. But in coaching, there's a lot more to it. But just here, generally, this is all I'm addressing. Okay, these are my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. You listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with, or they will shut you out. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. And by the way, they already know it, okay? By the way, when you get good at, I call this silent listening. When you get good at this, they're going to tell you everything. Stuff you may not even want to hear, but you'd rather hear it than not hear it. Maybe. Okay. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything. It's not a blanket statement. You don't actually do it with everything, but it goes something like this. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? Give and take, give and take. And number 3 with teenagers, don't sweat the small stuff. Save your energy for the big stuff if you even need it. If you're going to micromanage a teenager, you're just going to go off a cliff. I mean, it's just going to be a disaster. Allow them to make mistakes. Like if they do something stupid and it's not a big deal, say, well, that was stupid. Do you want to hear what I did when I was your age? And laugh it off. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not be perfect. You want to make that really clear with your teenagers, especially. You made mistakes. That's okay. 1-year-old biting, only child but issue at daycare. Yeah, there's not much you can do with a 1-year-old. It's just consistent corrective actions and diversion with a 1-year-old. So every time they bite, say no, and then you might want to go off and do something else that they might be interested in, but don't invite them over. Just go off and start playing with blocks or something, and the idea is they'll come over and join. If they keep biting, get up, move away, and then do something else. So yeah, there's not much you can do with a 1-year-old. The problem with daycares, and I know, and they're in a really tough spot, because if they're biting the daycare workers, it's not a big deal. But if they're biting other kids, who wants to go pick up their kids with teeth marks and blood in? You know what I mean? It's very difficult for the daycare workers to manage that because they can't watch that kid constantly. And it is tricky. It's just an awkward situation. They're only that tiny once, and usually they outgrow it. Any advice for the 12-year-old foster girls have been, I don't really teach foster parenting. I do get hired by people with foster children, but it's a tricky issue because do you have regulations around how you have to deal with them? Are they traumatized? Were they abused? Are you going to have them for long? Like, are they going to go back to the mom? Do they have visitation with the mom and or the dad or the extended family, whatever? I need to know. So in other words, it's coaching. I can't give you any advice. There's too many questions, too many variables. Yeah. What age to insist on please, thank you manners? Well, I started that right away, but I didn't overdo it. Like it didn't really bother me. Um, I remember my daughter, she couldn't say please. She was, I don't know, one or something. Both my kids talked really early because I never shut up. And to get any attention, they had to talk a lot. Like it was just the way it was a very loud household. But she couldn't say please. So she'd go, what? And she always whispered it. She'd be, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, what? It was really funny. And this was funny too. It's just by following your example. That's how they're going to learn it. So just start right away and, don't overthink it. I would say to her, say please. And she'd go, what? And I'd give it to her and then I'd say thank you. And she'd go, thank you or whatever. Thank you. And then I'd say, you're welcome. She'd go, you're welcome. I couldn't get her to stop saying you're welcome. So I'd walk away going, you're welcome. And she'd go, you're welcome. She couldn't figure out that she shouldn't be parroting everything I said. But yeah, it'll happen organically. Just make sure you're doing it, right? Yeah, please have that. Thank you. And you're welcome. It's one of those they learn through watching you. Don't rush stuff either. A lot of parents want to rush everything. My child's 8 months old. They're not crawling. They're not walking at 12 months old. There's nothing wrong with, that chart. What do they call that? The things that they're supposed to be touching on it every month. And don't get too caught up in that. It's a suggestion. It's not like law. At 3 months, they should be doing this. At 6 months, they're all so different. You could probably look it up. There was a baby walking at 6 weeks, literally walking without being held at 6 weeks. I think it was 6 weeks. A long time ago, I saw that. But yeah, they're all different. Does it say that in what do they call those? I always forget what that's called. The things that they judge what they're supposed to be doing and when. I don't know. Anyway, it's something marks. I don't know. New Brunswick. Hi, New Brunswick. Benchmarks. That's it. Yeah. I've got a really awful story about that, but I won't bother telling it here. I've told it before. I got someone fired because they were bullying parents at a mothering center where they were supposed to be supporting parents. And they were just, every time a kid wasn't doing something, she was basically calling them, defective. She was horrible. I got her fired. Anyway, it was great. I was just the last straw, right? I was the last complaint that she got, sort of thing, before she was fired. Not only did she stick by those benchmarks, though, but she was very critical of them, like telling the moms there's something wrong with their child if they weren't doing it right. She was just a bully, basically, in the wrong job. Yeah, she bullied herself right out of a job. My 1-year-old is still on purees with no real interest in solids. They'll catch on. Don't worry about that stuff. They'll catch on. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I'd be quite happy because I wouldn't have to worry about them choking. Yeah, eventually they'll grow out of that sort of thing. I'm going to talk about the toy rotation system. I'm not getting a lot of questions here today, so it gives me an opportunity to answer these other questions I have from other comments and all that. Anyway, the toy rotation system. I highly recommend starting a toy rotation system right from day one, basically. You rotate their toys. They only have about 5 toys out at any given time. But don't put away the big stuff. Don't put away the nurturing stuff, like their favorite plushie that they like to go to bed with. And don't put away books, or maybe some of them. But anyway, so you only have a few toys out at any given time. Maybe once a week, you pack them all up and bring out 5 different ones. They'll look at them like they're new. It's not that they haven't seen them before because you're just rotating them all the time, but they'll look at them. They haven't played with them for a week, so they will play with them and watch them. They'll play often a little bit differently with them. If they haven't seen that toy for a few months, they're a few months older. They might play with it differently. So there's a few reasons why you do that. It avoids overstimulation with kids because when they go into a playroom, which I'm not pro playrooms. I think they're just kind of a place to throw kids, and they're just chaotic usually. I don't hate them, but I would never want one. Anyway, I want my kids with me. I want them playing at my feet when I was cooking dinner, that kind of mom. But anyway, that's different. Everyone's different. But anyway, so yeah, what happens is that it stops them from being overstimulated and it teaches them how to focus. If there's too much around, they don't learn how to focus. Those are the kids, and they'll say, my kids are throwing stuff all the time. Well, have you got millions of toys out and they can't focus on anything? That's part of it. Also, it keeps your house a lot cleaner. And when you're teaching your kids how to clean up after themselves, it's like 5 toys get put away. So just makes it a lot easier. How do you handle an almost 6-year-old fighting at the park? They were playing tag. The other boy hit him on the face, and my son didn't like it, that he had words. I had to separate them, lots of tears. Well, how do you handle that? I would just leave. If it's physical violence, I would just leave. And that one's a tough one for me because I never teach kids to fight back. Do you know why? Because I've taught a lot about bullying. I've taught a lot of seminars on it and everything and how you prevent it. And I'm very strict about never teach a child to fight back because bullies aren't always cowards. Sometimes they're practiced fighters and they can really take your kid down. So, I would just say, look, it was just really unfortunate when you're arguing with something, just walk away. You're going to have to teach your kid just to walk away from an argument. It's the best advice I can give you. I have, especially in the South, the fathers, they want to teach. I've noticed this with my Southern United States. They want to teach their sons how to fight. And so I always say, look, you do what you're going to do anyway, but don't say I recommended it. Okay, because it's a different culture, maybe it's different down there, and that's fine. I'm not judging it at all. I would never teach it though, because I've known too many kids who fought back against a bully who happened to be a very good fighter, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a fight. I would say most bullies are cowards, but they're not all. I used to be a mediator for bullying in schools. And what I would do is I would have my coaching client, and I'd go into the school. This is years and years, about 17 years ago. And I'd go to the school with them. And I would say, when we're trying to deal with bullying, and this was like really bad bullying. So I'd actually go in to mediate. The other family would be there, the principal, or usually the vice principal, maybe the teacher. I don't remember. Anyway, and then my clients. And I said, whatever you do, never use the word bully or bullying, ever. Sure enough, we turn up, first thing they say, your child's a bully. I'm sick of my kid getting bullied every single time. So I stopped doing it. They couldn't help themselves. I said, you're just going to it's just instantly antagonistic. So it was funny. Okay. Would you chat with the parent and have the kids talk about what happened? It depends. Are you friends with that parent? Like what I mean is, I would kind of just walk away. I would feel out the parents, like, are they more like you and they're passive, or are they okay with their kid fighting? So you'd have to assess the situation. Potentially, but I'd rather just teach my kid to walk away. Here's what I would do though, is I teach kids how to be bully proof. Like I was never bullied. My kids were never bullied. There's a certain way of dealing with a bully. I haven't told this story in a while. Anyway, I can remember this like it was yesterday because it scared me. I was in grade 2, and it was the very first time I'd ever been in the hallway all by myself because I had to go pee in the middle of class. So I was walking back from the bathroom all by myself, and it was just weird. It was kind of neat. I felt special. I'm walking down an empty hallway, going back to my class. Coming out of the principal's office was I was grade 2, the grade 5 bully. He was known in the school to be the bully. He was scary, big, huge guy, nasty. Anyway, he saw me coming down the hall towards him, and he started licking his chops. He thought, I'm going to kill her. Anyway, so he came right up in my face, and I was like shaking. So he said to me, now my last name was Hanky when I was a kid, my maiden name, and he said, Hanky Panky. And I said, I prefer Snot Rag and Boogie Bundle. Oh, well, got to get back to class. He never came near me again. What I had done was I had used humor and I had diffused the situation. I agreed with him. I made fun of myself so he couldn't get mad. And then I gave him an easy out. I said, I got to get back to class. So what I do is when I'm teaching this to parents, how to teach this to their kids, is you role play with them. So you don't just tell them what to do, you role play. You play the bully, then you play them, then you go back and forth. The more they've done this, so you agree with the bully, you make fun of yourself with them. Do you got a big nose? Yeah, the whole family does. We all hide under when it rains. Like teach them these lines, things that they're regularly teased about, how to make fun of it themselves. But be very careful with that. If it's a really sensitive topic, pick something else. But teach them how to deal with this, and then how to exit. They could say something like this: what's your favorite TV show? What's your favorite game? What's your favorite? So you change the subject. If a bully is diffused and you agree with them, it often throws them off and they feel they have to come back harder. That's why you have to change the subject. Give them an out. But yeah, go back and forth with your child, role playing this at home, so that by the time they go out and they're faced with the bully, they've already practiced it. Telling them what to do is nothing compared to having them practice doing it. Does that make sense? So that's why my kids were bully proof. Doesn't mean we didn't come up against bullies, but they never came near us hardly at all, because we knew how to deal with them. A bully will only come after someone they can upset. I look back at that. I don't know how I came up with that in grade 2. I was pretty confident, and yeah, I don't know how I came up with that. I often think about that. How did I instinctively know how to deal with that bully, or was it just luck? Could have just been luck. But yeah, I was never bullied. Okay. I actually have a comment here. It was one of those things I thought, what a great thing, what a great point. And I don't like it now. What I said was connect bad behavior with something negative. What I mean by that is more with the consistent corrective actions with toddlers. So if they do something bad, you want to make sure there's something bad connected with it. So if they do something bad happens to them. They lose that toy they were hitting with. They're removed from the fun. The fun is taken away from them, whatever. So they do something bad, they connect it with something bad. But they don't learn the first time, usually not even the 50th time. They might learn the 51st time because they learn through a lot of repetition. But yeah, so it's a kind of an awkward one because you don't want to do that as they get older so much. But with toddlers, you do. Just like, I'm going to make sure that's toddlers. So connect bad behavior with something negative, and that will teach them that they're just going to stop doing it eventually. Okay, I'm going to move over. This has been the slowest live I think I've ever had. It's bizarre. It's been really relaxing, actually. So I'm going to be moving over to Instagram now. That's usually a really busy one. So is TikTok. They're much bigger platforms for me. So maybe that's it too. But it's just maybe Thursday's just really slow today. Anyway, so I'm going to be moving over there now. If you want to follow me, it's Bratbusters Parenting. If not, check out the link above. You can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course from 3 to the advice to remove the toddler has worked so well with my little boy. Excellent. So removing, perfect. That's from Carla. And, buy my boot camp course, or you can hire me for coaching. That's all in the link above. Anyway, I'm moving over to Instagram, and I'm on YouTube the whole time. That's where all of my lives are saved. So happy parenting. Alexa, stop timer.
30-minute timer canceled.
Alexa, start 30-minute timer.
30 minutes, starting now.
I have to do that because otherwise I go long. What happened here? Okay. I'm just going on Instagram now. There we go. Can you see me? Because I can't see me on here. Maybe once every couple of months that happens. So can you see me? If you could let me know, it'd be great. Otherwise, I'm going to stop and restart the live. Australia, hi Australia. I'm half Australian. Yes, okay, good. I just can't see me for some reason. It hasn't come up. Yeah, don't request to be in with me. I never let people come in on my lives because I only did it once when I first started on TikTok, and I had a big audience on there. And so someone wanted my audience, and I didn't know how to do a live, and I let them in, and they just talked about their business. So they just wanted to sell to my audience. So I got rid of them so fast, and I've just been afraid to do it ever since. Texas, hi Texas, and Montreal, excellent. I got to get out to Montreal one day. I don't travel much anymore. How can you encourage shy kids? Okay, shyness seems to be, I would almost say it's genetic. I don't know if it is or not, but because you can have like 3 kids in the family and only one will be shy. So I almost wonder if it's something in their basic nature. Just keep putting them out there, and also teach them social skills. Like, say, if you're going to go and talk to a group of kids at the playground, ask them about themselves. So do role playing with shy kids, go back and forth, back and forth. You know what's interesting is shy kids often blush too. Like, I'm not prone to blushing. I don't get embarrassed very easily, but I'm not. And I found that shy kids tend to go beet red really quick too. Are they correlated? Is that correlated? Interesting, isn't it? Okay. But yeah, give them some coping skills on how to socialize. And also, I don't know how old they are. I think you said they were 3, really little, but just say, everyone feels the same way. We all go into a room full of strangers and we're all worried, and, everyone feels the same way. I remember I was talking to these kids. I don't know where I was talking to a school or something. And I said, do you know how you feel insecure when you go here, there, whatever? And I said, so does everybody else. Even the most popular kids do. They're just better at hiding it. And the kids were like, really? This was like middle school. And they were like, really? And I said, oh yeah, they're just better at hiding it. So they like to know they're not alone. A lot of shy kids think they're the only shy one in the world, but they're not. I don't discuss autism on here. That's a coaching thing because it's very specific. It's more of a special needs thing, not ADHD, or that isn't at all, but autism is. So anyway, that's only on coaching if you want my help. Anyway, check out the link above. You can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, and my big boot camp course, 3 to 12 years old, or you can hire me for coaching. Okay, so let's get to your questions here. How to handle an 3 years old. How to handle an extremely sensitive child. Big feelings, scared of abandonment, and being alone. 3 years old. I'd want to know why. What are they afraid of? What caused that? That's not something they're born with. Big feelings, yeah, but scared of abandonment and being alone. I would have to investigate that. I don't know. I'd need to know the cause of that before I could come up with a cure. So you'd have to hire me for that one because I don't know. Could be a lot of different reasons. Oh gosh, such a good question. You're going to hate my answer. How can I teach empathy after my 20-month-old hits and throws toys? They don't develop empathy till they're 3 years old and 9 months. And even then, they have the ability to be empathetic. Doesn't mean they will be. They don't understand other people's feelings at that age. They can mimic and ape you and mask and pretend to, but they really don't get it. So you're 20 months old is your expectations are here and they're there. So yeah, no, it's an unreasonable expectation. It was funny because I've always said that they can develop empathy at 3 years and 9 months. And the professionals, scientists, child psychologists and all that, used to say it was 5 years, and they were saying it was 2.5, and they were saying this. And I read it a couple of years ago. I just looked it up again, and now they're saying 3 years and 9 months. I have been saying that for 50 years. 3 years and 9 months. It's when I see a shift in them. They start to look around and realize, I'm not the only one in the world. I'm not the only one with feelings. They just look at the world differently. Their brain develops that skill, empathy. Doesn't mean they'll have it. It means they have the ability to have it. Big difference between the two, but you get what I'm saying. Oh gosh, my 12-month-old still gets up every 3 hours throughout the night. I'm dying. What should I do? What do you mean gets up at 12 months old? Are they in a bed or in a crib? Yeah, I kind of don't know. My bedtime battles course starts at 2. I wouldn't recommend it for you because it really does start at 2. That's when they're in a big bed. I guess you have to do controlled crying. I'm just trying to think of something easier to do, but no. I think you'd have to do controlled crying. It's one of those things that I hate recommending, but I don't know what else to do. I did that with my son. He was 10 months old, and he was getting up throughout the night, and he just want to be attached to me for a minute or two. It was just a habit. I knew he didn't need to feed at 3 in the morning, but it was just such a habit. So I did controlled crying. That's when you let them cry it out in their bed all by themselves. But I went in every 5 minutes, patted him on the back and said, you're okay, you're okay. Then I went outside his door, shut the door, and I sat down in the hallway and cried. I had a pillow so he wouldn't hear me sobbing. I was sobbing. I think it was way harder on me than it was on him. It only lasted maybe 1 or 2 nights, and then he got over it. But it's called controlled crying. You just got to let them go. And you console them every few minutes. But I hate that. I hate it, but I don't know what else to do. Haven't got a clue. Okay. My 22-month-old will hit other, you're going to hate me. My 22-month-old will hit other kids in parks and play gyms. I say no and show gentle hands. No. But I haven't seen any improvement. That's because you're showing gentle hands. He doesn't give a crap, or she doesn't give a crap. It's consistent corrective actions. So you attach something negative to that negative behavior with toddlers. You only do this under the age of 3, but 3, you have consequences. There's a big difference. But yeah, if they hit, you'd say, okay, you're going to sit with me now for a couple minutes. It's not timeout because you're with them. Timeout is when they're going somewhere else. You're getting rid of them. So yeah, if they hit someone, you say no, and then you take action. It's consistent corrective actions. There's no way my kid would still be playing in a play gym if they just hit someone. I'd say no. I'd pick them up instantly, kicking and screaming. It's even better. It's a bigger lesson. The bigger the scene, the bigger the lesson. So I would take them over and they'd just sit. I wouldn't talk to them. There's no way. I wouldn't discuss gentle hands. That's the mini therapy session stuff. They're not listening to. It doesn't work. Yeah, you haven't seen improvement because it doesn't work. That's consistent corrective action. They'll eventually learn, hey, if I keep hitting, I'm going to keep getting pulled out of this fun place. So that's the idea. It won't happen right away. It's a process. How necessary is structure or a schedule? It's really necessary when you have to go places and get them to bed and go to school. But if you don't care if they're up all night and they never go to school or never have a meal at a certain time, then it doesn't matter at all. But life sort of has structures, and the world has structures. Like you have to pay your taxes at a certain time. You have to get to work at a certain time. So the earlier you start teaching them structure, just with certain things, bedtime is usually the first one that you start with, and meal time is another one. Then you get into school morning routine, structures, right? So don't do it with everything. Play should just be free form. Do you know that a kid's love language is fun? It's not being told they're wonderful. Parents tend to overpraise and underplay. Play with them. That makes them feel more special in their world. Play with them in their world, not your world. Playing with them, when you're having fun with your child, that is when they feel more loved and more special than at any other time. Their love language is fun. What age should teens get a job? Well, there's no set age, but I cashed out my kids' allowance. Like I just wrote down their allowance in mom's bank is what I used to call it. And at 15, I cashed them out and I made them go out and get a part-time job. And I prayed to God they'd have to clean one public toilet. Not necessarily, that wasn't their job, but they both had to do it. I wanted them to learn about life. I wanted them to be good workers, and they're really good workers. So, yeah. So 15, it's because that's legally here in Canada. That's sort of when they're allowed to go work at McDonald's and all that stuff. Three-year-old, very whingy and whingy. Are you Australian? That's where my kids are raised. It's usually in North America, it's whiny. So all my little kid stuff is all Australian. Anyway, 3-year-old, very whingy and demanding. When doesn't get her way, she says unkind words like "you're not the best, mommy." So she's just doing that to manipulate you. So if they're saying stuff like this when they're mad, I hate you, you hate me, you're horrible, you're ugly, you're stupid, all that, and I hate myself and all this. If they're mad, I would just go, whatever. And then I just go on doing the dishes or whatever I'm doing. I wouldn't give it any attention at all. But if they say that when you're at the theme park or going on a roller coaster, then you might want to worry. But yeah, it's just manipulation. Don't get pulled into that stuff. If you're allowing a 3-year-old to manipulate you with that stuff now, wait till she's 13. Yeah, just go, whatever. Okay. My 6-year-old and 18 months old sleep with me and my husband. Okay, check out the Bedtime Battles course. That goes from 2 to 8 years old. It's 2-part, how to get them to bed and how to keep them there. It's rough. It's a really rough, usually one really bad night. The worse that first night is, the better, because then they often won't get up ever again. So, but if it's kind of not a big deal and they kind of maybe get up a little bit, and, but anyway, yeah, check out the Bedtime Battles course. It's a whole system. It's a whole process. How to get a 2-year-old to eat meat. Well, I'm vegan, by the way, but I wasn't vegan when I was a kid, or my kids were little. I can't answer that because I'm not a nutritionist. By the way, I'm not pro-vegan. I don't know if it's a good way. It just suits me. I'm not pro-vegan at all. But yeah, I can't talk about that because I don't know if they need meat or what kind of meat you're talking about. One thing I've heard is that processed meat is horrible. You know, the deli meats that are all sliced, which, you know, I used to love. Evidently, those are really bad. That's all I know. But even that, I don't know. I'm not a scientist or a doctor or a nutritionist, so I can't really answer that. But I'll tell you what I did with my kids. I was a real health food nut, and I hate cooking, but I made everything from scratch. And I was very good at pureeing and hiding whatever I wanted them to eat, and I would always find a way to hide it somewhere. So yeah, whatever they were eating, like mac and cheese, it could have had some, who knows what it had in there in that cheese sauce. My son, when he first had pizza out there in the world, he came home and he said, "Mommy, their pizza is really weird because the sauce is red." Well, at home, my sauce was brown. I made all the pizza, the dough and everything from scratch. My sauce was brown because I had pureed spinach in it. I hid healthy stuff everywhere. 3.5-year-old behavior board. Washing windows as a consequence before we get to media blackout. Yeah. And then you said how. I don't know how, what you mean. I don't know where you were going with that. But yeah, that sounds perfect. So with the behavior board, it starts at the age of 3, and there's always 2 consequences for the kids. The first one is a positive action, which is hard to get them to do sometimes. That's why there's a second one. So you always, if they do something bad, you want them to replace it with doing something good. Even if they like doing it, it doesn't matter. They're doing a good deed. Don't get caught up in all this. So washing windows, that's a good deed. Okay, that's the consequence if they did something bad. If they won't wash that window within 10 minutes of being asked to do so, there has to be a time limit on it. So if they won't do that, then it's media blackout. You take something away, or that you take away their favorite toy for 24 hours, whatever. So the first one is a positive action. The second one is negative deprivation. And it's their choice. You don't have to go to that second one. That's their choice. And if they're old enough, I would always say that. It's your choice. I didn't want to do it. That was, you did that. All you had to do was wash a window. You chose not to. I'll do it now. It's too late. Time's up. They'll sometimes run and even do it. Okay, I did it. Oh, phew. Now can I have the iPad? No, you didn't do it in 10 minutes. A lot of parents get tripped up with that. And then the kid has an absolute fit. That's the best thing that can happen. The bigger the fit, the bigger the lesson. Stick to what you say. Mean what you say and say what you mean. You have to make it happen. 21-month-old, okay with me and okay with dad, but when we're all together, cries and whinges and screams. Do you have any idea? Well, they just want your undivided attention. They don't want you talking together. They'll eventually have to learn. Just let them scream and just keep talking. Oh, a 2-year-old, listen to me when I say come here and don't run away. Okay, if they're runners and you're out in public, this is a big safety issue. So what I would do is I would put them on a harness when you're first going out and then say, look, if you run from me, you're going to be clipped into this leash. Call it whatever you want. They don't care what it's called. But anyway, so as soon as they start to run, when you say, come over here, and they don't, clip them in for the rest of that outing. Is it going to get ugly? Yeah. The bigger the scene, the bigger the lesson. Okay. So you keep them clipped in for the rest of that outing. It's going to get ugly. Yep. But then the chances of them running again are a lot less the next time you go out with them. And if you're going to train them this, you might want to go somewhere where you don't care. Like just go to a park down the road or something and you don't care if they run. Don't start in heavy traffic. Don't do it that way. Plus, don't start with somewhere where you have to be all day, because then you have to keep them clipped in all day. See what I mean? You do practice runs. That's like when you're doing the soup. I have in my tantrum course, I have how to grocery shop with a toddler. If you really have to, and you're having a really hard time grocery shopping with a toddler, there's a whole system in how you do it. And I say, don't just go when you have to do all the weekly grocery shopping. Practice and just go and pick up a couple of things. So make it easier on yourself. Oh, good question. Okay. Oh, there you go. So the consequence is washing windows. And then you said, but what if he keeps hitting his sister all day and he's washing windows all day? He's going to run out of windows. What you do in that situation, let's say on the behavior board, no hitting your sister is his rule. So he hits his sister. You say, okay, now come over here. And within 10 minutes, you have to wash this window. Sorry. So he does it, washes the window, goes over and whacks his sister again. You say, okay, here's another window. I might do that twice. After that, if he hits her again, I'd say, I'll tell you what, that's the third time you've hit her. Media blackout starts right now. Do you understand? And watch him have a fit. There's the lesson. So what you do is if they go too hard with breaking the rule, then you just go straight to the negative deprivation. But you got to do it like that. That's the third time you've hit her. Washing windows isn't working. Media blackout starts now. Do you understand? And make it happen. Oh, he's going to have a fit. That's good, though. If you're afraid of a fit scene or a tantrum, they're in charge. Guaranteed. And they know it. So I'm getting all sweaty here. Oh. Video just went out. Did my video? Can you still see me? Because I can't see me. I don't know why, but this, every so often it glitches and that happens. Okay. LOL, got it. Thank you. Yeah. There's always something. I know sometimes people will hire me and they'll say, I'm not even sure if you can help me with this. I instantly get excited. Bring it on. Let's see. I had a couple of years ago or something, and I always say I've heard it all, but a couple of years ago, something came up I had never heard of. Good, you can see me, great. And oh geez, the parents were fabulous. They were just so smart. Just those type that they're just so much smarter than I am, but they didn't have experience with kids. So it was something, I can't say what it is, but it was something that I'd never heard of. And the parents and I had to really talk it through and think it through. Oh my God, that was one of the most exciting clients I ever had, because it was something that I had never come up against, and I probably never will again. It was something really different, and it was fascinating. So yeah, but usually I've heard it all. What if you don't use media? Take away a favorite toy. So they must have something that they like. I don't like to use food, but sometimes parents will have every single night after dinner, the kids get a little scoop of ice cream or something. I hate using food, but I don't mind taking junk food like ice cream. I hate junk food. But anyway, I don't mind taking that away from kids. So I would say, okay, tonight, you don't get the ice cream tonight for doing that. So you can take that away. I don't like using food, but because it's just junk food anyway, they don't need ice cream to survive. So last time I said that, someone said, yeah, I do. But anyway. My 10-month-old just wants to be carried all the time, which I generally love to do. Is there something behind that? No, no. And they're all different. My son wouldn't have wanted that. He wanted to get down and play. My daughter, she probably wanted to be carried till she was 10. I mean, she just loved being carried and loved up all the time. They're all different. You know, I always say that with babies, just give them, you know, that you meet their needs and manage their wants. With babies, you meet their needs and you meet their wants too. Like you just sort of cater to them. They're just babies' wants. What's your takeaway on ABA therapies? I don't even know what that is. Every time I look it up and I go, oh, right. I don't do it. I don't talk like that. That's not my thing. Oh, for autism. Yeah, I don't get into that. That's not my area. I deal with autism in coaching. But yeah, I don't have opinions on that. My specialty is parent-child relationships. So if you have a child with autism, for example, or some other special need or something, I'm assuming you have outside help with that, like someone with that condition or that challenge. So then I come along and I'm very good at the parent-child relationship. So I work in conjunction with someone doing those therapies, that type of thing. But I don't do that. I'm parent-child relationship. That's all I do. It's not all I do, but it's all I lead with. It's all I advertise, put it that way. Okay. Okay, my almost 5-year-old boy is bossing his twin sisters around. There are only 3. Pick something that he does that you don't like, one thing. And let's say he, I don't know what it is. Pick one thing he does that you really want to correct. And it's usually something physical. He might grab something off them or put it on the behavior board. And every time he does it, there's a consequence. Also, sibling rivalry is something that this is how I get around it. In order to get your kids to bond better is you play with them as a group, and you don't do anything competitive. You always play to the weakest link. So you play to what the 3-year-olds can do, and it's never anything competitive. Look up just fun, silly games to play with kids. And there's no winner or loser though. It could just be hide and seek, something like that. So, and then maybe say to the 5-year-old, okay, we're going to take turns. I'm going to take this, one sister, you take the other one and we'll hide, and do it like that. What ends up happening is because you're all having fun together, they tend to get along better. It just builds their relationship up. My kids were 5 years apart, a boy and a girl. What they bonded over was laughing at me. We did a lot of silly stuff, and I was always really dorky at it. So they bonded over laughing at mom because we did silly stuff all the time together. Child says they will break my things when I ask them to do something. You got to check out my boot camp course. If they're between 3 and 12, that just means they're in charge and they're bullying you. So you got to set yourself up as a leader. That would never happen if you were a leader. They're threatening you. That would never happen if you were a leader. So work on your leadership skills. That's all I teach here is leadership skills. And you give respect to get it. But check out the boot camp course. That might be perfect for you if they're 3 to 12 years old in that age range. Did you know that's when you're at the height of your leadership skills? They want to please you, 3 to 12 years old. Under that, they're nuts anyway, and teenagers kind of go a little bit rogue, or they can. You want them to be their own leaders, but you're at the height of your leadership skills between the ages of 3 and 12. Their behavior, not their basic personality or their basic nature, but their behavior, in other words, how they treat other people and themselves, is 100% directly related to your parenting. 100%. Might be 99.999, but I'd even argue that. Their behavior is 100% a direct result of your parenting. So work on your leadership skills. That's all it is. I've worked with hundreds of kids, all ages. I managed to get respect with all of them. Was it them or was it me? Was it because they were just easy kids? By the way, I never got an easy kid, not once, not ever. Not once did anyone say, here's an easy one, Lisa. They all went, good luck with this one. So I always got the challenging kids, the behavioral problems. And I managed to get respect with all of them because I was a leader. That's all I teach. I brought out the best in them. I made them like themselves. That's all it is. I made them like themselves when they were with me. Therefore, they wanted to please me. Or teenagers just didn't want to disappoint me. 14-year-old acts out, verbally abusive. Anything that doesn't go his way is a big issue. He's our nephew who moved in. Okay, so you've got custody of him. I can answer that if you've got custody. If he's your nephew, because I never like to tell other people how to parent other people's kids. But if you've got custody, I don't know what to tell you because it's a process, especially because he's moved in with you. There's probably some baggage there, maybe some trauma, and he's acting out of anger. So yeah, that would be coaching. Sorry about that. There's no quick answer. But you can check out the behavior board, and with teenagers, use it as an accountability chart. And you start really small, something like you never do anything that's a heated issue. His rule should be something like this. Dirty clothes go in the hamper and nowhere else. And then say to him, what do you want my rule to be? What do you want me to stop doing? Yeah, so check that out. That might help you. Call it an accountability chart with teenagers. Oh, did you hear that? My ice cube popped, bubbled. 4.5 on the daily at school pickup. Really drags his feet to come home in the wagon or the car. Sits in the snow and eats it instead. Help? You know why I'm hesitating? There's so many different things I could say to that. Okay. Just put in the behavior board, if you're not in the wagon or in the car within 10 minutes after school lets out, then there's a consequence when you get home. It's about all I can come up with right now. That's one I would want to have a lot of fun with that one. Like I would get creative with that. But yeah, just put it on the behavior board. If you're not in the wagon or the car within 5 minutes or whatever it is, whatever is very realistic, within 5 minutes and say, I'll give you the countdown, 1 more minute, whatever. So if he's not on countdown, that's different from the countdown when they're doing something bad, by the way. This is giving a warning that you got to get in the car within 5 minutes. And then there's a consequence when he gets home. So put it on the behavior board. Oh gosh, I know exactly what's happening here. My son turned 2 last week. He's become very indecisive. No, he hasn't. Asks for something, I give it. Then he gets mad and doesn't want it. Sends it into his tailspin of crying. Happens most frequently with me, Mom. Yeah, he's just, he's working you. He is just working you. He's playing a game. He's loving it. He's watching you squirm. He is like a puppet and you're like dancing around. That's all that is. So yeah. If you want a really specific, ask me a very specific question about something that would throw him off the edge and I'll give you a very specific answer. But yeah, he's working you. Okay. I have a 2-year-old, doesn't seem to get pooping on the toilet. He's done. Okay. Okay. That's extremely common. I have a potty party course. If you're interested, it's one of my toddler courses in the link above. Anyway, there's 3 reasons why kids don't want to poop in the toilet. It's more often than not boys. There's a reason for this, and I'll tell you. It's very graphic. But anyway, so there's 3 reasons why they don't want to poop in the toilet. One is they've done it before and they got splashback. They didn't like that. The other one is they don't like the cold bum feeling where all this air is hitting their bum when they're trying to poop. They're used to it being warm in the diaper. Number 3 is that they don't like the hanging feeling that's pulling on their little rectum, and they don't like that feeling of it hanging. So anyway, the way that we deal with this is we get a little porta potty, one of those little tiny ones that you sit on the floor, and you put a bunch of toilet paper in the bottom of that so that it's touching his bum. And plus hike the heat up in the bathroom. So there's no splashback, and he's got something touching his bum, which he's used to when he's doing it in his diaper. But anyway, those are the 3 reasons why they don't like pooping. And the reason why it's boys is when they get splashback, there's a lot more equipment down there to get hit. Yeah. Was that too graphic? Sorry about that. Anyway, it's in the potty training course if you want to check that out. Here's another one. I've got a course on toddlers who hit, bite, etc. You might want to check that out too, but it's about consistent corrective actions. Every time they bite, you say no, and then you remove yourself or whatever. And then next time they go in to bite, you prevent it from happening. You got to be on your toes with this though, because you're only correcting that one thing at a time. They learn through repetition, not words. They don't care if they hurt you. It doesn't matter to them. So you just say no, and then you push them away, and then you go do something else. But yeah, prevent them from continuing, because they get used to doing it. 4-year-old who loses his mind when he drops something or fails at something. How do we fix this? That's that fear of failure thing. When you're playing games, do you make a big deal out of winning? Because that often is it's a sore loser quality. It means that usually it's not something they're born with. It's something that they've learned. That failure and losing is bad, makes them feel like crap. So that's why when things don't go well like that, they tend to have a fit. So I could be off with this one. It could be something different. But anyway, it's a good point to make anyway. But yeah, sore losers are built. They're not born. So yeah, my mom always said about my brother and I, she always went on about this. And I was in my 50s and she still went on about it. And said, you're such a good sport. She was very proud of that because we were gamers and we played to win, but we didn't care if we won. Does that make sense? Mom always said, I'd rather play well and lose than win through luck. She always emphasized the playing. She'd always, even if she won, she'd say, gee, you played well. Remember that? You did that. And so she always emphasized trying and playing, and failure was never a big deal. It was actually a positive. Sorry, Alexa, stop timer.
There are no timers set.
Good. Okay. Good. Okay. That means I've got to go over to TikTok soon. Anyway, I'll do one more question before I go. Alexa, stop. Oh, tantrums and they hit you? Yeah, they're going to do that. You just physically restrain them from hitting you. So when they tantrum and they hit, it's different from my hitting course. I have 2 toddler courses that look kind of similar. One is tantrums, and if they hit during a tantrum, that's the tantrum course. If they hit just because they're mad and they just tend to hit, that's the toddlers who hit, bite, etc. They can't control themselves when they're having a tantrum, and you never correct that, but you restrain them. You physically restrain them if they're hurting themselves, hurting someone else, or damaging property. You just hold them for a few seconds or whatever. You don't look at them or talk to them. You still ignore the tantrum. But you just say no and then hold them and then let go. If they go to hit again or whatever, say no and hold them again. They'll eventually learn, but you got to be on your toes with this stuff. How do you feel about Montessori? I have no opinion. That's like asking me, how do I feel about the Jewish religion, the Catholic religion? It's all personal choice. There's no right and wrong. It's just, whatever you want, right? Anyway, yeah, I have no opinion on it whatsoever. Anyway, I'm going to go over to TikTok now. If you want to join me over there, it's still Bratbusters Parenting. If you check the link above, you can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can hire me for coaching. Gotta go. Pardon me. Oh, I have got some people on YouTube now. Just moving over to TikTok. My throat is bothering me tonight, unfortunately. Okay. So if you're on YouTube, you can ask me questions on there too if you want. I'm just looking, I've got so many different screens going. Hello. There's my Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok camera. It's my YouTube camera, which is up there, but that's my screen. And then I've got all my notes on another screen. And then I've got four, I've actually sometimes have 5 screens. I don't know why. It makes sense in the moment. I don't know. Okay. So while we're waiting, I'd love to know where you're from. I'm here in Vancouver, Canada. Pouring rain. We had snow last week, and we had like minus 13. I think it was like one of the coldest days we've ever had. Minus 13, which that's Celsius. We're just not used to that. Vancouver. Oh, hi, Vancouver. I didn't know anyone in Vancouver looked at me. I know they do, though. You know how I know? Hi from Norway. I'm half Norwegian. I know because I can always tell when someone recognizes me. If you ever see me on the street or in a cafe or something, come up and say hi, because I can always tell when someone's recognized me. They get that funny look. They're like, and they're talking. That's, not that they're excited, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, that's how I can tell. But yeah, come up and say hi if you see me in the street. There's been so much controversy about your tantrums video. Yeah, that's what keeps me going, because I'm shaking things up. I love it. I was going to say this is a secret. It's not a secret at all. South Carolina, huh? South California. Sunny, barely. Oh, okay. Naples, Florida. Don't expect me to have any sympathy if you've got too much sun in California. Yeah, I didn't get any sympathy. Anyway, when I first went on TikTok, I blew up overnight. So, of course, you get attention. And someone else told me about this. They were watching all the algorithms and everything. And they said all my competitors were doing duet videos and trashing me, especially with the tantrum stuff. What they didn't realize was they were the ones who built my channel. I blew up to 500,000 in 6 months. As soon as I went on TikTok, it was all my competition trashing me. And it was usually about tantrums. And then I got started to feel guilty about it almost, because they weren't figuring it out. And so yeah, all their followers were following me. And so anyway, then I started talking about it so they'd stop doing it. And they did. They stopped doing it. So I was like, thank you. That was great. That's why I kept going. I thought, oh, I'm shaking things up here, because I know what I'm talking about. I have a lot of confidence. I'm old too. And it's funny because it's usually younger people. And if you're teaching parenting and you only have little kids, it's like teaching finances with $10 in the bank. They haven't finished the job yet. They don't even know they don't know what's coming down the road yet. But it was funny. Yeah, I was having a blast. That was the most fun I had on TikTok, was when that was happening. It works, though. I don't think it's repression, to be honest. What's repression? I don't know what you're talking about. Missouri. I like the sound of that. It's like I lived in Australia for about 20 years, and we lived in Brisbane. And I used to love saying one of the towns up north near the Sunshine Coast was called Mooloolaba. I just love saying it. Oh, we're heading up to Mooloolaba. Isn't that a beautiful name? Yeah, if you're worried about, I know a lot of people think I should be upset when people don't agree with me. I don't understand that at all. If you know what you're doing, it's great, because and some of those people have admittedly hired me. They literally hired me. I'm old. I've been doing this forever. It makes sense to me anyway. Once you start watching, it makes sense. Okay, my daughter has alopecia, doesn't know about it, but it's progressing. I need to know her age. Oh, should I talk about it before her friends notice it and asks her, how old is she? I'm going to keep looking for that, because I want to answer that one. And it's a tricky one. I'll tell you why. I need to know her age first, though. So. Oh, the repressing the emotions. Yeah, there was millions of duets done, by the way, tons of them. A lot of them were taken down because they realized they were building my channel. It was great. They were saying that ignoring tantrums makes the child repress their emotions. It was a duet. Anyway, that's what people were saying, is I'm ignoring their feelings, I'm ignoring their emotions, I'm ignoring the child. Here's the thing, is I only ever ignored tantrums. Now, tantrums are not a feeling. Tantrums are a loss of emotional control over not getting their own way. That is just fine to ignore that. What you ignore tends to go away. You ignore, it's just in the crazy zone. Also, if your little one cannot handle having a tantrum ignored, you got bigger fish to fry. There's a lot more going on there. If that is damaging them in any way, you got to work on your parenting, because yeah, there's something else going on there. So the alopecia, she is so into looks. Oh, she's 5. Okay. She is so into looks. Okay, this is one of those really tricky ones. When I get clients who have children who are gay, or who are trans, or who have alopecia, or who have, what's that skin condition where skin, like eczema, that anything that makes them different, anything that makes a child different in any way, it's tricky. But I believe secrets imply shame. I don't always, depends on the age though, especially with the gay and the trans stuff. That can be something that we don't necessarily announce to everybody. But if there's something that everyone can see and it's pretty obvious, I'm more likely to say, let's start talking about it. What I would do is I would look up other videos on kids who have the same thing and how they handle it. And look at something, and you look for parents who've handled it really beautifully. They're not the ones who hide it. The kids who do the best are the ones who are openly talking about it. They're still going to be bullied and teased by some rotten little kids who have parents who haven't taught them how to be nice, okay? It's just the way it is. And tell them that. Say those poor kids haven't been taught how to be nice. That's all it is, okay? But anyway, I do believe secrets imply shame. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And yeah, I love it when I see those parents who've just handled stuff just beautifully, like these children who have severely deformed facial features or something, and the parents just take them everywhere, and they invite questions from kids, and they talk about it openly. And then once the kids don't care about stuff like that, basically, but they're more apt to ask if they haven't been told what's going on in the first place. But yeah, secrets imply shame. But I would address the fact that kids are probably going to be mean. I would talk about that. Say they just haven't taught how to be nice. You should feel sorry for those kids. It's tricky. Yeah. And the problem is too, like not with alopecia, but with children who are trans or gay, like at a very young age, they realize they're different. And I can't tell them to go out and just dress like a little boy dresses like a girl, and that they could very well be beaten up. And that's one of the trickiest things I get in coaching is I don't want them to be attacked, basically. So, and I don't want them to feel any shame either. It is really tricky, not easy. Yeah, start with looking up other videos. Alopecia, parents who've handled it beautifully. Just look up children with alopecia. Look it up like crazy. You will hit on some parents who just handle it beautifully. It'll just resonate with you. You'll go, oh, okay. I haven't had to deal with it. I'm not a specialist with that at all. I've worked with kids with it, and I tell them to do that. I say, look up those videos. And some parents they're really creative, and they just come up with these great ideas. Kindergartner not listening to his teacher, yelling no. How would you follow up at home? Okay. There's 3 reasons for this. Why a kid acts out at school. Because they also act out at home. So the solution is to set yourself up as a leader. That won't happen. Or that you are the pleaser parent and give them whatever they want at home. They get all their own way. So they go to school and the teacher doesn't do that. The solution is work on your leadership skills. The third one is something's happening at school that's upsetting them. I don't know what that is. Not usually with just yelling no, though. But could be. Something's upsetting them at school. I'm suggesting it's probably the first 2. So they either, yeah. You see what I mean? Work on your leadership skills. The odds of that happening are slim to none if you're a leader. My 14-year-old daughter is struggling with her appearance and is getting short-tempered. What should I do? Why is she getting short-tempered with her appearance? Is it just hormonal? And she's just becoming a moody teenager? That's really normal. I'm going to read out my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. And then I'm going to tell you something that's not going to help her, but it's something that I do talk about. Okay, it'll help you. Okay, Number one is, this is my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. Number one is listen to understand and show empathy. Don't listen to gather information to lecture with. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. They already know it anyway. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything. So you say something like this: I want your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? You don't do with absolutely everything, but you get the idea. It's about giving respect to get it. And number 3 is don't sweat the small stuff. Only save your energy for the big stuff if you're even going to need it. Now, girls especially, and boys too, by the way, who are worried about their looks, it's really tricky. And you know what's interesting is I raised my kids. I always said you can never be proud of how you look or how smart you are. You can only be proud of what you do and your effort. So I never emphasize the looks. Like I never, you know what I mean? Like I just sort of always said, so I always try, and like, not to say that she isn't going to be, it's not going to help because she's still going to be worried about her looks. But I would start, it's never too late to start emphasizing. You can never be proud of how you look anyway. Be proud of what you do, who you are, and how you treat people. That's where you're going to get the best results. And I also say sometimes the most beautiful people end up being the most miserable. Doesn't always lead to happiness. Yeah. It's tricky though. Being a girl, being a teenager, it's hard work. Oops. 2-year-old taking toys away from other littlies at a neutral play place. Okay, so you got a 2-year-old who's grabbing toys from others. I would just, it's consistent corrective action under the age of 3. So every time they grab a toy, you got to be right on top of this though to fix it. So you go right over and you take the toy away, you say no, and you give it back to the other child. And then you're probably going to have to pick your child up and take them off on the bench and sit with you. It's not time out when they're sitting with you. Time out is when they're off in a corner by themselves. So it's just taking time away. It's a little break, okay? But they're sitting with you. And I wouldn't even discuss it because there's no point. Don't do these mini therapy sessions. There's no point. They're all about actions. They understand. Hey, wait a minute, I grabbed a toy and I lost it. Got taken away from me. They will eventually learn. The next time you go out, then you get them another toy and you watch them like a hawk. So you go out. Just keep them sitting with you for maybe a minute. If they're having a tantrum, don't let them go back in until they're finished the tantrum. It sure is 14. Yeah. If you want to hire me for something like that, that's teenagers. I don't have any courses on teenagers. That's all. I started my business doing teen crisis work and working with abused children. So all the crisis stuff. And I don't lead with that anymore because I don't want to be someone on the news. I used to do a lot of TV and radio. And someone introduced me as the crisis queen. I don't want to be the crisis queen. I don't even want to be a queen. I just want to be the prevention coach. I want to prevent all that, but I still work with it. But I don't talk about it much. I think when I retire from, I'm in my 60s now. When I retire from coaching, which I will do one day, I'll probably always still do the crisis work because not many people do it, like the real crisis stuff with teenagers, because it's so rewarding and it's not many people do it. So yeah, it's hard to find help. You know what's interesting is a huge portion of my clients are teachers, principals, and child psychologists. I've never been hired by a youth worker. You know what a youth worker does? They work with troubled teens. If you can get respect with a teenager, you don't need my help. That's the PhD in all this stuff. Is if you can work with troubled teenagers, which is what I used to do, you can do that, you don't need my help. So I've never been hired by a youth worker, but principals, teachers, child psychologists, right, left, and center. Because I couldn't do what they do, but they struggle with parenting just as much as everybody else because it's personal. And they say, how can I run a whole school, but I can't handle my one little kid? And I say, because it's personal. It's different. You can't be objective. The toy rotation. Yeah, that's a good one. Toy rotation is, I think, imperative because when they go off to school, that's how they run everything. They don't throw everything out that the whole class has and say have at it. They say, now we're going to pack all this up and then we're going to do this. They teach children how to focus one thing at a time. That's why they have blocks of time, blocks of now we're going to do this, now we're going to do that, now it's nap time. So it teaches children how to be self-disciplined, routine, structure, and it teaches them how to focus. So you can start that at home with the toy rotation system. And my kids, what I used to do with them is with big stuff like we do Play-Doh. I'm very fussy with housework, so play like mess and that. So Play-Doh was only done at the kitchen table, and I made it. So we'd have a whole day of nothing but Play-Doh. And so I'd make it, and then we'd do different colors, and we'd set it all up at the table, and that was what we did all day. But they didn't have a million other toys out distracting them. It was Play-Doh day, and we'd literally play all day like Play-Doh. So then we'd pack all that up, and then they'd do something else. How to help boost confidence in toddlers? You don't really. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that. You can build up a feeling of safety. That's being a leader, teaching them right from wrong. But confidence in a toddler, I don't know. It's kind of a thing that comes along later. They can start developing that. Toddlers don't really kind of operate that way. So yeah, don't know how to answer that. What to do when my toddler screams and he doesn't get his own way? Ignore, ignore, ignore. Oh, is it okay to keep a calendar to stay on top of homework and have my son mark off? He's 12. Okay. This is how I did it with my kids. And sometimes I have different other ideas with families when I'm coaching them. But what I did with my kids is they knew, and when they first came home, they didn't have to do homework. Because I think, geez, they've been at school all day, then we'd go in the pool or we'd go where they usually had activities or something. But after dinner was homework time. And they knew there was no PlayStation or no TV or no computer until the homework was done. They just knew that. It wasn't a punishment. It was just incentive. Well, as soon as you fit, like I have no memory of ever telling my kids to do their homework or go to bed. They just understood that's just done. So I literally have no memory. But they knew that they had to earn the PlayStation or the computer or the TV by doing their homework. So they had to learn, you got to do what you need to do before you can do what you want to do. So I would hold if they're 12 years old, I'd have their phone. If they need their computer or iPad for homework, make sure it's facing you so you can see what's on there. It's funny, I always tell them to supervise them on the computer when they're supposed to be doing homework. And parents will say, yeah, I was supervising them, but the screen was turned away. You couldn't even see what they were looking at. Who knows what they were looking at, right? So make sure you can see the screen if they're doing homework. And just say, yeah, okay, so do your homework, and then you can do whatever you want after that. So it's their choice, really. Ideas for children feeling like the other siblings are unfair. Oh, you mean you're being unfair, favoritism with you, or that the other siblings are being unfair? You have to clarify that. I've got a really good answer for if it's you, and I don't know what you mean by the other siblings are being unfair. My 2-year-old hits and kicks me, but no one else. How do I go about this? I have a mini toddler course called Toddlers Who Hit, Bite, Etc. You might want to check that out. It teaches you how to deal with that. But if they do that during a tantrum, that's the tantrum course. So one's for tantrums, one's for just aggressive kids who hit and bite, etc. But if they do that during a tantrum, that's the tantrum course. I love your videos and advice. I find it really helpful for my 18-month-old. It really is all about you, though, isn't it? Everyone's trying to fix their kids. What do I do to fix my kid? I don't know. I've never done that. I set myself up as a leader, and then they respect me. That's all I ever did. I had no leverage with kids. When I was working with kids, I had no leverage. I couldn't take TV away from them. I was just at school in the back of the class trying to get them to do their work. So I had no leverage. My leverage was I was fun. I was funny with teenagers, and I was fun with little kids. That was my leverage. That was all I had. I bonded with them. So yeah, it's all about connecting and being a leader. Leadership is more about connecting than discipline. Discipline is a tiny, tiny part of it. It's like this part of it. This is connecting. Connecting and bonding with kids is everything. It's everything. Their love language is fun. They feel when you're playing with them in their world or laughing with a teenager, I work with lots of delinquent teenagers, and when you're laughing with them, that is their love language. And you think they'd be rude to me when we have that bond? They would be embarrassed to be rude to me. Think about it. I connect with them. I bring out the best in them. I make them like themselves when they're with me. I've literally been told by teenagers, I didn't even like myself until I met you. That is a leader. That's what a leader does. A leader brings out the best in them, makes them like themselves. Why would they be rude to you? They just would be embarrassed. They just wouldn't do it. Does that make sense? That's leadership. You give respect to get it. How to tell your 10-year-old kid they cannot go to a sleepover when you know it's not safe. Yikes, that's a tricky one. I would just say, I'm making the call. I've decided I'm not comfortable with it. We'll talk about it when you're older, if you really don't want to say why. That's a lot of people say, when should they start doing sleepovers? And I say, whew, depends. Like, plus, I don't want to get into this, but I've worked with lots of kids who've been in awful situations because they've gone to a sleepover. The parents like the parents. They like the kid, but then they don't realize that kid has older teenage siblings, or the uncle stayed over, or someone else. You know what I mean? Horrible stuff has happened. So yeah, I'm very nervous of sleepovers. Very nervous. Sleepovers never, sorry. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yep. Tips for teen girl, 15, who shows narcissistic and histrionic behaviors. Well, sounds kind of normal. I don't know what you mean. You'd have to explain that. Give me an example. Tips on adjusting to daycare with an 18-month-old boy. It just takes time. It can take quite a while, actually. It can take like 6 weeks or so. Not always, but it can. So yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. Listen to teacher or other staff. You mean you got a kid in school doesn't listen? If they're naughty at school, usually they're naughty at home, or you give in to them at home and they're used to getting their own way. It's usually one of the two. The third one is something could be upsetting them at school, but it's not usually that one. Sometimes I can tell if I'm coaching. I can tell because I just ask weird questions and I go, oh, okay, that's what's happening. But yeah, it's usually because if they're acting out at school, it's because they also act out at home, or you give in to everything they want and they're totally in charge at home. And school's not going to do that. So yeah, the solution is be a leader. That's all I teach is leadership. Check out my courses. My big boot camp course is all about your leadership. That's when you're at the height of your leadership, 3 to 12 years old. Their behavior is 100% a direct result of your parenting. Not their basic personality or their basic nature. You don't want to interfere in that. But their behavior is 100% your parenting. I don't know why my voice is bothering me tonight. Well, I'll tell you why I don't like this question. David said, what's your take on parents raising iPad kids? It's very judgmental and insulting towards other parents. So I don't like that one. Does that make sense? Yeah, you're insulting other parents. Every parent does the best they know how. They don't do the best they can. I teach them to do the best they can, but they do the best they know how. If they're relying on screens, it's just a coping mechanism, right? So yeah, don't judge them for that. 2-year-old trying to hurt 4-month-old. Yeah, they don't understand squishy parts of the head, brain bleeds, shaking baby syndrome. Supervised 24/7. That's all. Supervised 24/7. I can't give you a better answer than that. You can't teach empathy to a 2-year-old. You can't teach a 2-year-old how to respect and handle a baby. It's impossible to trust a 2-year-old to do that. I had one super sweet kid and one that's naughty at school. How did I parent one of each? Some kids are just super easy and they just have an easy nature. So you got to work with that, okay? I had 2 kids and I parented them quite differently. For example, my son, he's the one who had tantrums. My daughter never did. She was super easy. My son was easy too, but when he was a toddler, he had tantrums. That's the only challenge I ever had with him, really. But I parented them quite different. A really good example of this is I would hide when my son would come out of the bathroom and he'd go, Mom, and he wouldn't hear anything and he knew I was hiding. He said he still can remember the terror. So I'd dive out of pantries, grab his ankle out from under beds. It was horrible. But then he became a teenager and it was payback time. He was very good at that stuff, way better than I ever was. I still shudder when I think about it. Anyway, so I couldn't complain because I tortured him when he was a kid. because he liked it. We would laugh. My daughter, I never did it to, not once, not ever. She hated that sort of stuff. It scared her, so I couldn't do it with her. So see, even though I was still a leader, but I was different with each kid. So you got to meet their needs and manage their wants. My suggestion is you're not meeting their needs. The other one needs a different kind of discipline or a different kind of direction. If you're absolutely overwhelmed, you can check out the boot camp course, 3 to 12 years old, that teaches you leadership. If you want the next level up, that's coaching one-on-one with me. It's all done on Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you live. I cater to all time zones all around the globe. I got some weird hours. Okay. I'm currently struggling to manage 2-year-old tantrums without resorting to screen time in the end. Yeah, if you keep rewarding a tantrum and giving them what they want, they're going to get worse and worse and worse. The best way to minimize tantrums' duration, intensity, and frequency is to completely ignore them. So there's a way of doing it. So when they're having a tantrum, you're just filing your nails or whatever. But you got to be right there. Don't go on your phone. Don't look distracted. Look like you're waiting for a bus. In other words, they'll clue in that you're waiting for them to finish. As soon as they're finished, say, "You all done? You want to go read a book?" Or, "Are you all done? You want to go to the park?" You ignore the crazy and reward the calm. It'll get worse before it gets better because they're used to you feeding that. Any attention, you don't look at them or talk to them. Any attention is tantrum food. You're fertilizing it, basically. You don't do that. So yeah, they'll clue in eventually, but it'll get worse before it gets better because they're used to getting their own way during a tantrum has worked in the past. All of a sudden, it's not going to work, and you're going to have a fit. The bigger the fit, scene, or lesson, the bigger the fit or the scene of the tantrum, the bigger the lesson, as long as you manage it properly. So yeah, you're just like waiting for a bus. And then parents always say, "What if they hit?" Then you physically restrain them. You still don't look at them or talk to them. You go, "No." And then you just hold them for a minute, let go. If they hit again, say no, or else you can actually walk further away. But you physically restrain if they get violent. I have a whole course on tantrums, by the way. It's a mini toddler course. If you're interested, it's in the link above. Okay, I'm going to read this out, even though I don't usually address this anymore. I wasn't sure if ignoring tantrums could make their emotions feel unheard. No. If you're, I know it's trendy to say stuff like that, big feelings, big emotions. They're not even really feelings. A tantrum is a loss of control over not getting what they want. There's nothing wrong with ignoring that. Nothing. If that does damage a child in some way, you're doing a whole bunch of other stuff wrong, because that does not damage a child. If you're already meeting their needs, ignoring the tantrum is managing their wants. You meet their needs and manage their wants. You don't need to validate every single motion they make. So yeah, if that is in any way damaging a child by ignoring their tantrum, you got worse things to worry about. That a healthy relationship with the parent, that would not damage a child. Advice on kids with ADHD. That's where I learned all this stuff. Those are all the kids I worked with. I call them alphabet kids. And I'd be given to them to work with as a mentor or whatever, and they'd hand me a giant file. I never opened up one single file, not once, not ever. I used to call them alphabet kids. ADHD, WXYZ, ODD, ADD, whatever. They were alphabet kids to me. And I treated the personality, not the diagnosis. I bonded with them. And those were all the kids that I learned all this with. I've worked with hundreds of kids. I didn't learn a lot with my own kids, to be honest. They didn't provide me with much of a challenge because I got respect when they were little. And they were kind of easy kids. They didn't have any special challenges. But I didn't learn much. I learned how to live with teenagers, though. How to start letting go of control and, that sort of stuff. I learned that. You can't teach parenting if you haven't finished the job with your own teenagers, because how do you know if what you're doing is going to pay off? My son, I knew it had paid off when my son was 15, and he said, "Mom, I could never rebel because you're too reasonable and easy to talk to." I thought, oh, nailed it. That was it. That was the validation for me. I thought, oh, okay, it works. So, but I didn't learn it with him. I learned it with other teenagers and that when I was working with them. Okay, I got to get going. Thanks so much for joining me. If you check out the link above, you can see my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses. You can get my big boot camp course, which is 3 to 12 years old. Remember, that's the height of your leadership. Their behavior is 100% a direct result of your parenting and your leadership or lack of. And then you can hire me for coaching if you've got teenagers or something really, sort of red zone or just difficult. Or sometimes parents just want to talk to me and it helps them get better results that way. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back again soon. Happy parenting. Bye now. Sorry, YouTube, I didn't see your questions. Oh gosh, okay. This is, you say that you ignore, this is from Meja. I'm sure I said that wrong. Sorry about that. You say when a toddler is throwing a tantrum to ignore them and to look like you were waiting for a bus. How do I do that when I have a baby to feed change in that moment? That is tricky. Oh shoot, I should be looking up at the camera. That is tricky. I'll save that for another time, for another live, but that's a really tricky one, and I'll explain it later in another live. So if you could join another time and maybe ask again, I'll try and notice it next time because that could benefit a lot of other parents too. Okay, thanks so much. Bye, YouTube.